The fluorescent lights in Dr. Martinez's office buzzed like angry wasps above my head. I sat there, staring at the X-rays clipped to the light box, watching the dark shadows that spelled out my death sentence in medical terminology I didn't want to understand. Stage 3 pancreatic cancer, Dr. Martinez said gently, her voice soft like she was talking to a wounded animal. I'm sorry, Sarah. With aggressive treatment, we're looking at maybe 18 months. Without it. She shrugged, unable to finish. My phone buzzed. A text from my boss, Marcus. Where are you? The Peterson report was due an hour ago. I stared at the message, then at the X-rays, then back at my phone. 18 months. Maybe less. And Marcus was worried about a report. When I got back to the office, I walked straight to Marcus's glass corner office like I was walking to my own execution. Through the transparent walls, I could see him leaning back in his leather chair, barking orders into his headset, his feet propped up on the mahogany desk I'd helped him pick out 3 years ago. I knocked. He waved me in without looking up. Sarah, thank God. Where's the Peterson? I need to tell you something, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He held up one finger, continuing his phone conversation about golf handicaps and weekend plans. I stood there, swaying slightly, the cancer eating at my insides while he laughed about some joke I couldn't hear. Finally, he hung up and looked at me with those cold blue eyes that had never shown an ounce of human warmth. I've been diagnosed with cancer, I said. The words hung in the air between us. I watched his face, waiting for something, concern, sympathy, even basic human decency. Instead, Marcus leaned back in his chair and actually smirked. Work till your last breath, he said, his voice casual as if he was commenting on the weather. I don't pay you to rest. That sentence didn't just hurt, it rewired something fundamental in my brain. Standing there in his glass office, watching him turn back to his computer, like I was nothing more than a malfunctioning printer, I felt something I'd never felt before. Something that would change everything. Before we dive deeper, hit subscribe and tell us in comments, what would you do? Mercy or revenge? That night, I sat in my apartment, staring at my reflection in the black window. For 32 years, I'd been Sarah Mitchell, the good girl, the rule follower, the one who never caused trouble. But as I looked at myself, I realized something. I wasn't going to die as Sarah Mitchell. I was going to become someone else entirely. I opened my laptop and started researching. Not about cancer treatments or survival rates. About Marcus Brennan. His background, his history, his family. What I found was interesting, but what I didn't find was even more intriguing. Marcus had no online presence before 5 years ago. No college records, no previous employment history, no social media accounts. For a man in his 40s, that was almost impossible unless Marcus Brennan wasn't his real name. I dug deeper, using skills I'd learned in my computer science classes years ago. Cross-referencing databases, following digital breadcrumbs, piecing together fragments of information. By 3 a.m., I'd found the truth. Marcus Brennan used to be Michael Brady, a former pharmaceutical sales rep who disappeared after being accused of bribing doctors to overprescribe opioids. The accusations never stuck, but Michael Brady vanished anyway, resurfacing 5 years later as Marcus Brennan, with a completely clean background. But here's the interesting part. Michael Brady had a daughter. A daughter named Emma who died of a drug overdose at age 16, killed by the same opioids her father had been pushing. And Michael Brady's wife, consumed by grief and rage, had sworn to destroy the man who'd killed their child. Her name was Rebecca Brady, and according to my research, she died in a car accident 2 years ago. Except I don't think she died at all. I think she'd been hunting Marcus, just like I was about to hunt him. The next morning, I did something I'd never done in 3 years of employment. I called in sick. Then I drove to the address I'd found for Rebecca Brady's last known residence. The house was empty, but the elderly neighbor was chatty. "Oh, Rebecca," Mrs. Chin said, watering her roses. "Such a sad story. Lost her daughter, then her husband disappeared. She was never the same after that. What happened to her? Car accident, they said. But I never believed it. Rebecca was the most careful driver I ever knew. Plus, she lowered her voice conspiratorially. She'd been acting strange before she died, talking about finding him, making him pay. I think she'd finally tracked down that no-good husband of hers. Do you know where she was going the night she died? Actually, yes. She'd gotten all dressed up, said she had a business meeting. In the city, somewhere fancy. She was excited about it, said everything was finally falling into place. A business meeting. In the city. The night before she supposedly died in a car accident 50 miles away. I thanked Mrs. Chun and drove back to my apartment, my mind spinning. If Rebecca Brady hadn't died in that accident, if she'd somehow faked her death to escape suspicion, then where was she now? And more importantly, was she still hunting Marcus? I spent the weekend creating a new identity for myself. Not completely fake, I didn't have those kinds of resources. But I created new email accounts, new social media profiles, a new persona that could operate in the shadows. Then I started reaching out to people from Michael Brady's past. What I found was a pattern. 3 other pharmaceutical reps who'd worked with Michael Brady had died in the past 2 years. All accidents. All men who'd been involved in the opioid-pushing scheme. Someone was systematically hunting down everyone connected to Emma Brady's death. And that someone was getting closer to Marcus. Monday morning, I went to work like nothing had changed. Marcus barely acknowledged me, still angry about my cancer excuse from Friday. He had no idea that I now knew his real identity, his dark past, and the fact that someone was probably planning to kill him. The question was, what was I going to do with that information? Around lunchtime, I got a call from an unknown number. Sarah Mitchell? Yes. My name is Rebecca Brady. I believe we have something in common. My heart stopped. I'm sorry, who is this? We need to meet. Tonight. The coffee shop on 5th and Main. Come alone, and don't tell anyone about this call. The line went dead. I sat at my desk, staring at my phone. Rebecca Brady was alive. And she knew who I was. That evening, I walked into the coffee shop like I was walking into a trap. Because maybe I was. She was sitting in the corner booth, wearing dark sunglasses despite being indoors. When she looked up, I saw the face of a woman who'd been hollowed out by grief and filled back up with something dangerous. Sit down, Sarah. I sat. You're supposed to be dead. Death can be very liberating. You should try it sometime. What do you want? Rebecca slid a manila envelope across the table. I want to offer you something. A choice. I opened the envelope. Inside were photographs of Marcus' recent ones, taken from a distance. Pictures of him leaving work, entering his house, playing golf at his country club. I've been watching Marcus for 2 years. Planning. Waiting for the right moment. The right moment for what? To make him pay for killing my daughter. I studied the photographs. These look like surveillance photos. Because that's what they are. I've been documenting his every move, learning his routines, figuring out the best way to make him disappear without anyone suspecting murder. You're planning to kill him. I was. Until I learned about you. She leaned forward. You see, Sarah, I've been thinking about this all wrong. Killing Marcus would be too quick, too easy. He'd be dead, but he wouldn't really suffer. Not the way Emma suffered. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we destroy his life instead. Piece by piece. Layer by layer. Until he's begging for death. Rebecca pulled out another envelope, this one much thicker. I've spent 2 years gathering evidence of everything Marcus has done. His identity fraud, his financial crimes, his involvement in the opioid crisis. I have enough to put him away for life. Then why haven't you turned him in? Because prison is still too good for him. I want him to experience real loss. The kind of loss that eats at your soul until there's nothing left. She paused, studying my face. But I can't do it alone. I need someone on the inside. Someone he trusts. Someone like me. Someone exactly like you. I should have walked away. Should have gone to the police, reported Rebecca for stalking, for planning murder. Should have warned Marcus that a dangerous woman was hunting him. Instead, I said, "What do you need me to do?" Rebecca smiled, and for the first time since I'd met her, she looked almost human. First, we need to make Marcus fall in love. Fall in love. With who? With me. Or rather, with the woman I'm going to pretend to be. She pulled out a driver's license with her photo but a different name. Elena Vasquez, age 35. I've created a complete identity. Elena is a successful art dealer, recently divorced, looking for a mature man who can appreciate the finer things in life. And you think Marcus will be interested? Honey, Marcus is a narcissist who thinks he deserves the best of everything. Show him a beautiful, sophisticated woman who seems impressed by his success, and he'll fall like a house of cards. But how? That's where you come in. You're going to arrange for us to meet. Casually, naturally. Maybe at a business function or a charity event. Somewhere Marcus feels important. I thought about this. There's a pharmaceutical industry conference next month. Marcus is giving a presentation. Perfect. I'll be Elena Vasquez, art dealer with an interest in medical philanthropy. You'll introduce us, and nature will take its course. And then what? Then we wait. Let Marcus fall completely, utterly in love. Let him start planning a future with Elena. Let him start to trust her with his secrets, his fears, his vulnerabilities. And then you destroy him? Then we destroy him. Not quickly, not cleanly. We take apart his life the way he took apart mine. His business, his reputation, his freedom, his heart. Everything. Rebecca leaned back in her chair. The question is, Sarah, are you willing to help me make the man who told you to work until your last breath wish he'd never been born? I went home that night and lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. What Rebecca was proposing wasn't just revenge. It was psychological warfare on a scale I'd never imagined. But as I thought about Marcus's smirk when I told him about my cancer, about his casual cruelty, about all the ways he'd made me feel small and worthless, I realized something. I wanted him to suffer. Not just to be punished, but to actually experience the kind of pain he'd inflicted on others. The next morning, I called Rebecca. I'm in. Good. We start immediately. Over the next 3 weeks, Rebecca transformed herself into Elena Vasquez. New wardrobe, new hairstyle, new accent, new personality. She was no longer the grief-stricken mother I'd met in the coffee shop. She was sophisticated, charming, magnetic. Meanwhile, I started planting seeds at work. Casual mentions of the upcoming pharmaceutical conference, how important it was for our company's image, how impressed the board would be if Marcus made good connections there. Marcus took the bait perfectly. He not only decided to attend the conference, but he insisted on giving a presentation about ethical leadership in pharmaceutical sales. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. The night of the conference, I watched from across the room as Rebecca, now Elena, made her entrance. She was stunning. Every man in the room turned to look at her, including Marcus. I gave her 20 minutes to work the crowd, then approached her during the cocktail hour. Elena, what a surprise to see you here. Sarah, darling, I had no idea you worked in pharmaceuticals. We made small talk, loud enough for Marcus to overhear. Elena mentioned her art gallery, her interest in medical philanthropy, her recent divorce from a terribly boring investment banker. Right on cue, Marcus appeared at my elbow. Sarah, aren't you going to introduce me to your friend? Of course. Elena Vasquez, this is my boss, Marcus Brennan. Marcus, Elena is one of the most successful art dealers in the city. Elena extended her hand with a smile that could have powered a small city. Mr. Brennan, what a pleasure. Sarah has told me so much about your company. All good things, I hope, Marcus said, already completely enchanted. Oh, absolutely. She says you're doing revolutionary work in pharmaceutical ethics. If Marcus noticed the subtle irony in that statement, he didn't show it. He was too busy being mesmerized by Elena's charm. They talked for an hour. By the end of the evening, Marcus had asked Elena out to dinner. Phase 1 was complete. Over the next 2 months, I watched Marcus fall in love with Elena the way a man falls off a cliff, completely, helplessly, devastatingly. She was perfect for him, beautiful enough to feed his ego, sophisticated enough to make him feel important, mysterious enough to keep him intrigued. She listened to his stories, laughed at his jokes, seemed genuinely impressed by his success. Marcus had never experienced anything like it. Meanwhile, Rebecca was gathering intelligence. Every dinner, every weekend getaway, every intimate conversation was an opportunity to learn Marcus's weaknesses, his fears, his secrets. And she was recording everything. He talks in his sleep, she told me during one of our secret meetings. Last night, he spent 20 minutes apologizing to someone named Emma, his daughter. He dreams about her. Good. That means he still has a conscience buried somewhere. That'll make this more satisfying. By month 3, Marcus was talking about marriage. He'd bought Elena a ring, a 3-carat diamond that probably cost more than my annual salary. That's when Rebecca decided it was time to move to phase 2. I need you to plant something in Marcus's office, Rebecca said during our meeting at a diner outside town. A USB drive. Plug it into his computer and run the program. It'll take about 5 minutes. What does it do? It installs monitoring software. Every email, every phone call, every document he opens will have access to all of it. That's illegal. So is identity fraud. So is bribing doctors to overprescribe drugs that kill teenagers. So is telling a cancer patient to work until she dies. She had a point. The next day, I waited until Marcus left for his lunch meeting with Elena, then slipped into his office. The USB drive contained a program that looked like a routine system update. I plugged it in, ran the installation, and was back at my desk before Marcus returned. That evening, Rebecca called me. She was practically giddy. Sarah, you're not going to believe what we found. What? Marcus isn't just hiding his past. He's still actively involved in pharmaceutical fraud. He's been using his current company as a front to launder money from illegal drug sales. Are you serious? Dead serious. We're not just dealing with a man who changed his identity. We're dealing with an active criminal who's been using legitimate business as cover for ongoing illegal activities. This changed everything. Marcus wasn't just a man trying to escape his past. He was still making the same choices that had killed Rebecca's daughter. What do we do now? Now we get creative. Phase 3 began the next week. Elena started having problems at her art gallery. Financial difficulties, insurance issues, problems with suppliers. Nothing too dramatic, just enough to make her seem vulnerable. Marcus, being the knight in shining armor he thought he was, immediately offered to help. He could loan Elena money, he said. He had connections who could solve her problems. He could even invest in her gallery if she needed a partner. Elena was so grateful, so touched by his generosity, so willing to let him take care of everything. What Marcus didn't realize was that every financial transaction he made to help Elena was being documented. Every connection he used was being recorded. Every illegal favor he called in was being preserved as evidence. Within a month, Rebecca had enough evidence to destroy not just Marcus, but his entire criminal network. But she still wasn't satisfied. I want him to lose everything the way I lost everything, she told me. His business, his money, his freedom, his reputation. But most importantly, I want him to lose hope. What do you mean? I want him to think he's finally found happiness, finally found redemption, and then I want to take it all away in the most devastating way possible. The plan Rebecca devised was diabolical in its complexity. First, Elena would accept Marcus's marriage proposal. They would plan a lavish wedding, invite all of Marcus's business associates and social connections. The wedding would be the pinnacle of Marcus's new life, his final transformation from Michael Brady, the disgraced pharmaceutical rep, to Marcus Brennan, the successful businessman with the perfect wife. Second, on the day of the wedding, Elena would disappear. Not just leave, disappear completely, taking with her all the money Marcus had given her, all the evidence of his crimes, and all hope of the future they'd planned together. Third, the evidence of Marcus's ongoing criminal activities would be delivered to the FBI, along with proof of his real identity and his connection to the opioid crisis. Marcus would lose everything in a single day. His bride, his money, his freedom, and his carefully constructed new identity would all vanish simultaneously. He'll go to prison, Rebecca said, but that's not the real punishment. The real punishment is that for the rest of his life, every time he closes his eyes, he'll remember the moment when everything he thought he'd built came crashing down. It was brilliant. It was cruel. It was exactly what Marcus deserved. The wedding was planned for a Saturday in June, at an exclusive venue overlooking the harbor. Marcus spared no expense: imported flowers, premium champagne, a 10-piece orchestra. He wanted the wedding to be perfect, a celebration of his triumph over his past mistakes. The guest list included everyone important in Marcus's life: business partners, clients, board members, social connections. People who knew Marcus Brennan as a respectable businessman, who had no idea about Michael Brady or Emma or the trail of destruction that had led to this moment. 2 days before the wedding, I helped Rebecca make the final preparations. "Are you sure about this?" I asked as we reviewed the plan one last time. "Sarah, my daughter died because men like Marcus value profit over human life. He spent years hiding from the consequences of his actions, building a new life while my family was destroyed. Now he's going to learn what real loss feels like. But after tomorrow, it's over, right? You'll turn over the evidence and let the law handle the rest?" Rebecca smiled, but there was something cold in her eyes.
"Oh, Sarah.
You still don't understand, do you?" "Understand what?" "This isn't about justice. This isn't about the law. This is about making Marcus Brady suffer for the rest of his miserable life." A chill ran down my spine. "What do you mean?" "I mean that ruining his wedding is just the beginning." Saturday morning arrived with perfect weather. The venue was decorated like something from a fairy tale, with white roses and golden ribbons everywhere. Marcus looked happier than I'd ever seen him, greeting guests and accepting congratulations on his upcoming marriage. I stood at the back of the ceremony space, watching him check his watch for the 100th time. The wedding was supposed to start at 4 p.m. It was now 4:30, and there was no sign of Elena. At 5 p.m., Marcus's best man approached the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a slight delay. Please enjoy the champagne while we sort things out." At 5:30, Marcus called Elena's phone. It went straight to voicemail. At 6 p.m., someone discovered that Elena's hotel room had been cleaned out. All her belongings were gone. At 6:30, Marcus received a text message: "Check your bank accounts." By 7 p.m., Marcus had discovered that Elena had cleaned out every account she'd had access to. Nearly $500,000 gone. By 8 p.m., the guests had started leaving. The whispers had begun. Marcus Brennan, the successful businessman, had been left at the altar by a woman who'd apparently conned him out of his money. But that was just the opening act. At 9 p.m., as Marcus sat alone in the empty venue, still wearing his tuxedo, federal agents arrived with arrest warrants. The evidence Rebecca had gathered was overwhelming. Not only did they have proof of Marcus's real identity and his connection to the opioid crisis, but they also had documentation of his ongoing money laundering operation, his tax evasion, his bribery schemes, and dozens of other crimes. Marcus was arrested in front of the few remaining guests, led away in handcuffs, while photographers captured every humiliating moment. The story made national news. Pharmaceutical exec arrested at failed wedding. Rebecca had succeeded beyond her wildest dreams. Marcus had lost everything: his money, his freedom, his reputation, his carefully constructed new life, all in a single day. But as I watched the news coverage from my apartment that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Rebecca had said this was just the beginning. What did that mean? I found out 3 days later when I got a call from Marcus's lawyer. "Ms. Mitchell, I'm representing Marcus Brennan in his federal case. I was wondering if you might be willing to testify on his behalf." "Testify about what?" "About Elena Vasquez. We believe she may have been involved in a long-term conspiracy to frame Mr. Brennan for crimes he didn't commit." My blood ran cold. "What kind of conspiracy?" "We think Elena was working with someone inside your company. Someone who had access to Mr. Brennan's accounts, his passwords, his personal information. Someone who could plant evidence and manipulate records." That's ridiculous." "Is it?" "Because according to our investigation, Elena Vasquez doesn't exist. The identity is completely fabricated. The art gallery, the divorce, the whole background, it's all fake." I hung up the phone and immediately called Rebecca. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. By evening, I was panicking. If Marcus's lawyers could prove that Elena was fake, they might be able to create reasonable doubt about all the evidence. Marcus might go free. Worse, they might figure out that I was involved. I drove to Rebecca's apartment, but it was empty. According to the building manager, she'd moved out 2 days ago without leaving a forwarding address. Rebecca Brady had vanished, just like Elena Vasquez. And I was left holding the bag. The next few weeks were a nightmare. Marcus's lawyers were building a case that their client was the victim of an elaborate frame job. They claimed that Elena Vasquez was actually Rebecca Brady, the wife of Marcus's former identity, and that she'd spent years planning an elaborate revenge scheme. They were right, of course. But they couldn't prove it because Rebecca had disappeared completely. What they could prove was that I had introduced Marcus to Elena, that I had been present at key moments in their relationship, that I had access to Marcus's office and computer systems. The FBI came for me on a Tuesday morning. Sarah Mitchell, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, and money laundering. As they read me my rights, I realized the full scope of Rebecca's plan. She hadn't just wanted to destroy Marcus. She'd wanted someone to take the fall for the crimes she'd committed in the process. Someone expendable. Someone who was dying anyway. Someone like me. In the end, Marcus was convicted on some of the charges. The evidence of his ongoing criminal activities was too solid to dismiss entirely. But he received a lighter sentence because the court believed he'd been partially victimized by the Elena scheme. I was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. My cancer progressed rapidly in the harsh environment of the prison medical facility. I died 8 months into my sentence, in a hospital bed surrounded by guards instead of family. Rebecca Brady was never found. Elena Vasquez's trail went cold completely. Somewhere out there, she was living a new life under a new identity, having successfully destroyed both Marcus and me in her quest for revenge. Marcus served 3 years and was released on good behavior. Last I heard, he was working at a small accounting firm under supervised probation, a broken man haunted by the memory of a love that was never real. In my final days, lying in that prison hospital bed, I thought about the choice Rebecca had offered me that night in the coffee shop. She'd said death could be liberating. She was right, but not in the way either of us had expected. I'd spent 32 years being Sarah Mitchell, the good girl who followed the rules. In my final year, I'd become someone else, someone willing to break laws and destroy lives in pursuit of revenge. Marcus had told me to work till my last breath, and I had. Just not for him. I'd worked for Rebecca Brady, helping her execute a plan that destroyed us both and gave her exactly what she'd wanted all along, the perfect revenge that left her enemies destroyed while she walked away free. Some people say revenge is a dish best served cold. But I learned that revenge is more like poison. It destroys everyone it touches, even the person serving it. Especially the person serving it. My last thought, as the morphine took hold and the machines around me began to beep their final warnings, was that Rebecca had been wrong about one thing. Death isn't liberating. It's just the end of a story that should have been written differently. And if you liked this story, give it a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more shocking tales. Click the box on the left, your next adventure is waiting. And if you like this story, give it a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more shocking tales. Click the box on the left, your next adventure is waiting.